I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order.
Hello, council member.
Hi, Council Member QB. How are you today?
Very good.
Good. I'm just having a little technical problems. As I'm missing my iPad. So anyway, it's on its way back. But anyway, can we do a roll call? Can we do a roll call, everybody?
Would you like me to begin the program?
Yes. Can you please?
Sure.
I appreciate that. I'm really having some technical problems. So go.
Oh, no problems at all. No problems at all.
Thank you.
I got your back, council member.
I know you always do. Thank you.
So welcome everyone to our meeting. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that the city of Tempe is in the Salt River Valley, which is the ancestral home of the O'odham and the Peepash, the Maricopa Indian communities, whose care and keeping of this land allow us to be here today. So we'll now call the August meeting of the Sustainable and Livable Communities Committee to order. As you expect, the committee covers topics related to sustainable and livable communities. So no formal votes, though, or decisions about city programs, policies, budgets happen here. Our role in these committee meetings is to explore with staff different topics and talk to stakeholders and community members and make recommendations later on to our council colleagues. We want the process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be a part of whenever you choose to be. You can share your thoughts with us by filling out the comment card about any item on a meeting agenda or by reaching out to us directly with any other thoughts, questions, or ideas any time of day. You can reach out to Jennifer, well, maybe not any time, but within reason, but please reach out
Most
to
of the time,
us.
right?
Yeah. And someday it is our great hope, sooner than later, we'll be hosting these meetings in person. We're well aware that having meetings in a virtual way really does limit public involvement and engagement, and we're so eager for the time when we can all be together. For now, in our virtual environment, we need you to fill out comment cards in advance that can be read into the record for any agendized item. The link to the comment cards can be found on our committee webpage, which is tempe.gov, and then /SLC. And you'll find contact information for committee members and the staff there for non-agendized questions as well.
Thank you, Councilmember QB. I really appreciate that. The next item on our agenda is item number 2, review and approval of meeting minutes from our August meeting. If there are no objections, I move that we approve the minutes from the August 24th meeting as written. Councilmember QB, do you have any objections?
I second.
Oh, you second.
No objections, and I second the motion.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is item 3, public comments. This committee welcomes public comment. According to the Arizona open meeting law, the committee may only discuss matters listed on the agenda. Matters brought up by the public under public comment that are not listed on the agenda cannot be discussed by the committee. A 3-minute limit per person will be in effect. Kristen, do we have any comment cards?
Councilmember Adams, we do not have any comment cards for the meeting today.
All right, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is item 4A, current items and updates. And we'll begin with item 4A1, green infrastructure. And I want to apologize again to Julian and Marilyn for last month's meeting when we ran overtime and we're unfortunate that we had to reschedule this presentation. Thank you very much for coming back. Julian?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Councilmember Adams, Councilmember QB. At this point, let's see. Can everybody see that? Is my presentation on visible?
Yes, Julian, it is.
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for having me and allowing me to present. My name is Julian Dresang. I am the city engineer for the city of Tempe. And today I have the opportunity to speak about green infrastructure. So we'll talk a little bit about our current program, some pilot projects that we've been involved in, and kind of how it's incorporated within city code and some of our engineering documents. So we always like to start out with how these programs address some of our city council goals. So for this one, definitely has a portion related to our tree coverage. Tree coverage helps to, reduce heat island effect and provide shade for residents as they walk and visit city parks and such. And then also just our city infrastructure and assets, trying to make sure that we're compliant with industry standards and rehabilitation of infrastructure as such. So I think everybody here is familiar with our Tempe Climate Action Plan. It's kind of broken up into different areas. Emissions reduction is a key goal, as well as resiliency, and kind of moving down from resiliency, extreme heat, and that's where green infrastructure is identified within that Climate Action Plan. Why is green infrastructure important? It's important for a number of different reasons. It supports urban cooling. It creates shade, as I mentioned. It can help to save water that would normally just flush out of the system, but we can retain that water and use that for our living infrastructure. Capturing that stormwater, and then can actually even have the effect of helping to keep our streets clean during rain events. Green infrastructure is not it's not just one department or one division within the city. It incorporates a number of different entities, and so I've listed some of those here, including the Office of Sustainability, Municipal Utilities, Engineering and Transportation, Community Development when we're dealing with private projects, as well as external partners like Arizona State University. We've had some luck working with some private businesses, and then most importantly, our Tempe residents. I'm now going to step through a number of pilot projects that the city has worked on and incorporates components of green infrastructure. So the first one I'm going to talk about is College Avenue. This is one of the most biked streets in the city of Tempe and in the Phoenix region. This used to be a very wide street. The residents were concerned with traffic volumes, traffic speeds, and just making it a more comfortable place to travel in the neighborhood. And so this was a capital improvement project where the street was actually narrowed to help reduce speeds, and that also left space for green infrastructure. So you can see on the picture on the left, the original curb line there next to the sidewalk. We were able to add landscape strips along that area, and then the green stormwater actually flows into there during rain events and provides water for those trees and other landscaping in that area. And so this project has been in place. If you drive along there, the trees have matured and is a really beautiful street in the city of Tempe. There's also the benefit then of removing that asphalt helps to address some of the urban heat island effects that go along with that. The second project is Dorsi and Lemon. This is a small remnant property owned by the city of Tempe, and Braden, working with some of our neighborhood businesses, Four Peaks Brewery was a partner in this, providing volunteers. We were able to actually put a storm drain inlet under the sidewalk, which you can see on the picture on the left, where the during rain events, the water would flow under the sidewalk and enter that city property. And it diverted that stormwater, helped keep those trees green, and we were also able to incorporate some of the compost that the city has from city green waste. This is another project that was, you can make some simple changes that have a big effect. So this is along Rio Salado Parkway, rather, just west of Hardy, and simple things as just making a break in the curb is a form of green infrastructure. So that, again, that stormwater is diverted off of the main roadway and helps with trees and vegetation. And again, we were able to use some of that compost that the city had into the park to make it just a better project. And finally, this is the most recent project that we completed. This is on 5th Street east of Evergreen. So on the east side of the Loop 101. Along the south side of Evergreen was just kind of a remnant property. There was a lot of issues with dumping of garbage. When it did get wet, it became very muddy and the mud was tracked out onto the street. And so we had a project to put in curb and put in landscaping, and we were able to, again, use green infrastructure to collect that stormwater and use that in the right of way instead of just flushing it into the storm drain system. So it's really exciting. You can see from some of these, it doesn't have to be super complicated. It can be as easy as just curb cuts, or on larger projects, we can incorporate some larger components. So where is green infrastructure currently addressed in our code and design? Chapter 12 in the city code relates to drainage and flood control, and specifically Article 4 talks about stormwater retention. We have our engineering design criteria, and so it has kind of 3 main subjects. The first being stormwater retention. When we talk about retention, we're talking about the volume of water. So we try to retain some of that water when there's a storm event on the property. Then the second is stormwater quality. So we're making sure that that stormwater that goes into the system isn't contaminated and isn't dumping pollutants into the system. And then the third is low impact development, sometimes just reduced to LID. And when we talk about green infrastructure and LID are basically the same thing for when we have that discussion. And so when you go to those LID guidelines, what the city has done historically and what's identified there is that we've adopted the City of Mesa's Low Impact Development Toolkit. That was published in April 2015. And the key areas listed there have to do with green street tools, vegetated swales, bioretention, permeable paving tools, constructed wetlands, infiltration and under drains, green roof tools, and rainwater harvesting tools. So, and then with each one of these, there's sections in that toolkit to describe when they can be used and what they look like. And it's really a great document. On this last slide, I've just included a couple of challenges that we just need to understand as we continue to develop our green infrastructure system. One of the hardest things is that Tempe is built out, so we don't have a lot of unlimited right-of-way, and we have some finite open space, and a lot of the new development, these high-density developments, are pretty much lot line to lot line, so we don't necessarily have as much room to incorporate some of these into our existing areas as some of our neighboring communities that might have more space. Overall, there's kind of a lack of education related to green infrastructure and LID guidelines, and that's on the professional side, as well as I think just educating our residents. For some folks, this is new, this is different. We don't have a dedicated funding source for these projects, so as we have capital improvement projects, we might try to incorporate these components. We get contacted sometimes by residents that are interested, and then it usually becomes a pooling of resources from different departments of the city, and sometimes other partners like ASU, and I mentioned Four Peaks being a partner on one of these as a private business. Some other communities, there was a presentation not too long ago from City of Tucson. They've been working to identify specific funding and funding sources for these types of projects. There's a significant amount of existing infrastructure in place. So over time, historically, the way stormwater is addressed is through underground pipes, storm drain system that ultimately dumps out into places like the Salt River and such. So there's a lot of that in place just because that's historically how storm drain infrastructure has been handled in the past. And then one thing we always got to make sure of is if we're putting these this infrastructure in place, that we have a maintenance plan. So you can't just kind of build it and forget it. It's real important to go in and have a budget and a plan in place to make sure that the infrastructure is properly maintained. So that concludes my presentation today. If you have any questions, my email address and phone number here, as well as our Director of Sustainability, Dr. Braden Kay. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about our green infrastructure program.
Sure. Thank you so much, Julian, for the presentation. Some thoughts I have are the College Avenue looks great. I bike that regularly, and it really turned out great. And I would like us to incorporate that in all of our that kind of design and things into all of our new projects. Also, I'm not real comfortable with having to have you guys go to other areas to try to find money for our green infrastructure. I'd rather have a line item dedicated to it that is already in the plan, and instead of having to try to rob Peter and Paul and all that. So that is a suggestion I have, because it's much easier to make it happen when it's planned ahead like this. So and I just, yeah, so that's just my 2 cents. Councilmember QB, I'm sure you have some more to add.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams.
Well, sure. And you mentioned the Mesa toolkit, but I imagine you're familiar with the Greater Phoenix Green Infrastructure Handbook that was put together by the Sustainable Cities Network, where I work, and the city of Scottsdale, and received considerable funding. And that's also a guidebook. I imagine you use that as well.
Yeah, that's another resource that we have. It's not specifically identified currently in our engineering design manual, but there's no reason we couldn't reference that one as well. So, but that is a great document that I am aware of.
Great, thanks. And you showed in the first slides that a number of departments collaborate on green infrastructure. And as a city, we're less siloed than I think a lot of other cities. Perhaps it's our size, perhaps it's our proximity to ASU. So I imagine you see more opportunities for interdepartmental collaboration on green infrastructure. It's kind of a softball, but I think it's an important question nonetheless.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, that it's not just a single division or department that makes these projects happen. Mm-hmm. We're working closely with our water utilities. They help us with a lot of the storm drain infrastructure, particularly the maintenance, the private development. When projects come in, they take a look at these projects. We are with engineering. We're tasked with addressing storm drain concerns. So with identifying areas where there is flooding and working with our residents to incorporate those projects. And so, especially with these pilot projects, they're a lot of fun because we have one plan right now where it's working with ASU, it's working with our sustainability office, engineering has a component, and right. The more people we have putting our heads together and talking about these, it's amazing what great ideas come up. And sometimes we're not even aware of certain areas that that would be a good place for this, but just through starting these pilot projects, someone might say, oh, we have this area over here that might be a good candidate, or here. And it really is. It's
Do you know what the spending is, like the current spending on green infrastructure? Is that a number that's obtainable about what we spend on green infrastructure projects in a given year?
We could probably pull that out, because the difficulty is we don't have really a lot of specific projects per se. What we do is we try to incorporate them into existing projects. So for example, the project on Evergreen, we were addressing multiple issues with that, and so green infrastructure was a component of that. We have gotten recently approached by a private development project that was interested in including green infrastructure in their system as part of their new project, and so that's exciting to see that there's interest on the private side. But usually they're either small pilot projects or they're incorporated into larger projects. But I could probably pull out some numbers from those, but it's a little bit difficult specifically to identify those costs. So
well, yeah, just to not summarize, but to sort of synthesize, and I really appreciate what Councilmember Adams said, but I think when it is important to sort of have a line item. There's always going to be serendipitous opportunities, but if it's okay with the Councilmember Adams, I wonder if we could see a presentation maybe in early January about further opportunities for really proactive interdepartmental collaboration on these kind of projects, and where we can identify opportunities that we may not have thought of before. I mean, we are limited in space, but we have a lot of roadways that need slowing down, non-arterial roadways that we could do more of these projects. And I'm wondering if in the beginning of the year, you could come back and discuss with us again about further opportunities for investment and interdepartmental collaboration, and perhaps like a budget request.
Absolutely, we could definitely do that, and I'll work with the proper staff for that.
Yes, and Julian, you're familiar with the Envision rating system through the American Public Works Association, are you?
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's an excellent tool to use for promoting green infrastructure, and it has all the components in it that you would be able to make sure you reach out to the neighborhoods, make sure the drainage is right. It's a perfect handbook for doing the green infrastructure and getting the community involved too in the decision-making process. And I believe I heard through the grapevine that wasn't being used in engineering, but I sure would like it as a best practice, and I sure would like us to use it.
Yeah, Envision's a great program. We actually did a training. A lot of staff in engineering and community development were able to sit in on that. And we're finding now that also consultants that we work with are more and more trained in the Envision program. So I think we're going to hear and see more of that in the future. So it's not something that's new to us. We've been exposed to that through that training, as well as continuing to see that in the private sector when we hire consultants, having that training as well. So thank you for pointing that out, Councilmember Adams, and we'll continue to hear more about Envision, I think, as it becomes more mainstream.
Yes. So when you say you went through training, did you guys get certified then? Are you certified Envision raters?
We have some staff that did go through the process. So the training was the same for everybody. Then it was an option if staff wanted to go through and become personally certified. So I think that was a good way to do it, because we were able to have a broader pool of folks be able to hear and understand the program. So even if they chose not to be certified themselves, they understand it.
Okay. Yeah, I would sure like to see people get certified that are in engineering related to that program, because I know that we hire consultants, and I get that, but if we have in-house educated people, that will save a lot of money in consultant fees. So like I said, I would like to see more of that done, so we can save money in the long run, since we're paying staff anyway.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Huey, do you have anything else on this section?
No, thanks. I know budget concerns are always there, but just looking at additional investment opportunities. I know that the Alameda Streetscape project, it will be beginning at the end of the year. There's great excitement in that neighborhood for that project, and I'm really thrilled to see the collaboration and work, and only want to enhance that and give more support to you in the budget cycle to bring more projects forward. So thank you so much to you and your staff.
Yes, I completely agree with you, Councilmember QB. Like I said, I think College Avenue is a best practice, and Alameda Avenue would look great, if it's similar to College Avenue. Also, I do have one other question, and I'm not looking to cut.
Uh-oh. Do you guys hear Councilmember Adams?
No, I think we may have lost her.
Yeah, it says she just cut out for a moment.
We could just speak offline, or she could send her last comment to you perhaps, so we could continue on. But really appreciate you coming today, and thank you, Braden. Thank you so much. I know the public engagement process for Alameda was really exceptional. The work that Bonnie Richardson and Robert Yabas did in the community. I attended many of those meetings, and there were difficulties to work out with the neighbors. And I know it's not necessarily an easy thing always to to implant low impact development. So thanks so much for all you do. And if we could move on to the next item related to our tree canopy. And I guess I will continue on, but let's see, it's, let me see, sorry. Urban forestry update, and Richard Adkins is here to tell the tale. Thank you, Richard, for stepping up. And I think we should start the presentation.
Very good. Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Council Members Adams and Kuby. I know Council Member Adams is there somewhere, so.
I apologize. Go ahead,
No,
Richard.
that's great.
Okay.
Well, again, thank you for the interest and the opportunity to provide an update on some urban forest activities and our tree and shade canopy goal. I'm just going to be giving you kind of a verbal update today. I do not have any slides there, so if you're looking for them, you've just got me, and that's where we're going. So, well, my name is Richard Adkins, and I serve as the urban forester for the city of Tempe. So I work under the charge of the City Council's Sustainable Growth and Development Strategic Priority, specifically Performance Measure 4.11, which is to achieve a citywide, and that's on city and private property, 25% tree and shade canopy by 2040. So working with city staff, we have recently updated this performance measure worksheet, adding some clarification language, as well as addressing concerns of equity and inclusion throughout our community. This should help to further refine the program strategies as we go forward. Well, so far this year, the city has planted over 800 trees. This includes new tree planting projects, as well as getting a start on the replacement of trees that have been lost over the past years. We are back into the planting season now following summer, and I have plantings scheduled starting October all the way through January so far, and I'm sure there's more that's going to add to that. Well, since our canopy goal is both city and private property, we are approaching the task from both fronts. Not only through our line item budget and CIP planting projects, but I'm also collaborating with the Transportation Right-of-Way and the Office of Sustainability on some right-of-way landscape refresh projects and a few of the green infrastructure projects that Julian was just mentioning. And we're also partnering with local organizations and the Office of Sustainability for planting projects on properties within the Tempe Union High School District, as well as the Tempe Elementary School District. I've been working with some neighborhoods through our Marianne Quarter Neighborhood Grant Program to also further plantings on private property there. And I am finalizing plans to extend a cost match program opportunity to private property owners. This is where the city will help share the cost of a tree with the private property owner, and I will deliver the tree, and the property owner will be responsible for the planting and the maintenance. And of course, we will provide, technical assistance along the way as needed. And of course, we're always working with water conservation staff to put out educational opportunities, both online and hopefully coming up in person for residents, and continuing that outreach. Now, City Council this year did approve budget, providing for the hiring of staff and the purchasing of equipment for the urban forestry project, which I was very happy and grateful for. I currently have one staff member out in the field, but I do have interviews set up for the additional staff positions in the second week in October, and I'm looking forward to hopefully hiring good quality staff to further our program. Now, due to supply chain issues, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, my equipment seems to be a lot further out than I was anticipating. So I'm trying to work through that challenge and move forward, seeing how we can get our work done. I have been working with our tree contractor, the West Coast Arborist, to remove some dead and dying, as well as some high-risk trees that I've identified throughout the city, as well as just doing some general maintenance tasks. The biggest update that I'm really happy to share is the new Canopy Study that we are currently working on. I mean, we submitted for and were awarded a grant from the Department of Forestry and Fire Management of Arizona to conduct a new canopy study for the city. And as I was looking through the map, it really made sense to include our neighbor Guadalupe. So we are partnering with that town so we can share data with them. And we are actually planning a tree planting activity with them later this year. Well, this new data that we're using is based on 2019 imagery as compared to the initial data images from 2010 that were used for the city's urban forest master plan. This new data has increased resolution, as well as we're incorporating some enhanced land classification delineation models than what were used in the initial data set. So we're going to use that data and we're going to combine it with some Tempe demographic information supplied by our GIS staff. And so we're going to develop tree equity maps moving forward with the city. This should provide us with a more robust representation of what our actual canopy is, as well as better data so we can have better decision making for future planting opportunities to serve, target areas of need. This new data and the map should be available by about mid-December is what our target is. So with the new data mapping resource, in combination with the establishing of our proactive tree care and management team, the continued support from council and city management, we're looking to really, empower residents and businesses, our local organizations, and even city staff to collaboratively work together to care for our urban forest resource, as well as grow our canopy and provide sustainable benefits for the community while we're working toward our goal. So with that brief overview, I would like to provide the opportunity and address any questions, concerns, or comments you might have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very informative. I'm so excited that we've already planted 800 trees, and let's shoot for 8,000 next year. It's just this is a fantastic program. I really like it that we're going to cooperate with our neighborhood and partially fund the trees also, as a lot of people have been impacted by COVID and financially things are tough. So I'm really super excited about that, and just tell us what you need, Richard.
Very good. Thank you.
You bet. Councilmember Tuvey?
Yes, thanks, Richard. So with the Canopy Study, are you also working, I imagine you are, with the ASU Arboretum, and I know they've done extensive canopy work, study work over the past few years.
For this particular study, I am not working with the Arboretum or any of the staff at ASU. This is that is included within the overall canopy data. I did some sample plots there when I did some checking, because I had to do a lot of field checking for the data, because we're kind of, like I said, we've changed resolution. We're changing some classifications. So I was looking at a lot of data on there. It is included, but I have not worked specifically with any of that staff.
Oh, that makes sense. I know ASU is always a great collaborator. We work with, do we still work with Urban Offsets and the company, the NGO out of North Carolina to help extend our tree investments?
Yes, we have. There is a new provider. That company is no longer in business out of North Carolina. So we have a new partner that I am working with ASU and Trees Matter on, and we actually have a planting in 2 weeks with a local partner that these will be carbon offset trees.
Oh, that's excellent. And so, what would you say is our percentage of canopy right now? If so we want to be at 25% in 2040, where are we now?
Really, from the data that I have now, we're really no different than what we started. We're sitting at about 13, maybe 13.5%. I will tell you, with some of the new data that I'm looking at, preliminarily going through, that might decrease a little bit, because, like I said, that first data set was from 2010.
Right.
And now I'm looking at 2019. We did have a lot of growth in the city from 2010 to 2017 when the plan was put together. So, and as we refine this data, we might see a % or so drop, but I'm looking, as we look at this data more closely, we're going to see how that looks. But as we're starting to plant now and do, the replacement as well as manage the maturing trees we have, I'm pretty positive and confident that that's only going to grow in the next 5-10 years.
Sure, and I know this budget cycle, there was a big increase for the urban forestry program, and I'm really delighted with that. And Councilmember Adams, you were crucial to that. So I'm really delighted to see that. But I'm wondering if you can come back in a future meeting, at a time that is, before the budget cycle begins in earnest. And so we can discuss what kind of planning, infrastructure, even staff you might need to really supercharge the investment and supercharge your performance measures, because I know we have your back. We only want to give you more resources. And so could we have some feedback in, a couple months' time about what's needed to really advance the goal?
Absolutely, be happy to do that for you. Yeah, as far as supercharging, I want to be careful and not get too far ahead of what we can maintain. I'll just put that out there. But yes, with staff, let me see how these interviews come here. Equipment is going to be an issue. I'm going to put that out here right now. Council did approve for me to get a new aerial lift vehicle, which is fantastic. But from procurement, I'm 450 days out to receive that vehicle. So, I mean, that puts me back about 1.5 years before I really have, that piece of equipment. So looking at, possible rental or leasing ideas is something that I'm going for. But yes, as far as equipment and maybe some additional staff, especially for outreach, I'll be happy to get that back to you in a future presentation.
And this gets back to the whole interdisciplinary, interdepartment collaboration we were talking about with low impact development and green infrastructure. But I'm wondering, I know that council gave the charge to compliance to look at business properties and see which business properties have kind of let their landscaping go, and they were required as part of their planned development. And that would be something that would be of less cost or no cost to the city of just simply requiring them to do the landscaping that they committed to maybe even decades ago. And I know I've received emails, and Councilmember Adams, you too, from residents complaining in multifamily projects about trees just dying and not cared for. And that's not on you, that's on code compliance to identify those opportunities. Maybe there's a way we could work with private industry, these developers, and kind of ensure that they're following through on their landscape plans.
No, I agree. Having the inspectors out in the field for doing that compliance and enforcement is an important part of the overall program.
And often it can't rely just on observation, because you may not know, oh, there was a tree here 10 years ago. But you have to sometimes, compliance might have to dig back into the past to see what was there. And that might take some, I'm not sure we have the staff to do that. They're supposed to be doing it. Maybe the staff isn't there. But to me, that's an important way we add to our canopy, and we can ensure that the business community is with us and following through on the promises they made.
Agreed. And as we provide more of just the catalyst and doing it on our own city properties, that'll also hopefully encourage and empower the businesses as well.
Oh, and sorry. And one last thing. I know we have a considerable percentage of our bus stops are not shaded, and some can't have trees for whatever reason because utility easements or whatever underneath. But I assume we're also looking at maximizing the numbers of bus stop shelters and bus stops that could have trees. And that's an obvious place where we want to increase our sheltering, our shade canopy, because it serves doubly to encourage transit riding.
Indeed. And part of the data that we're looking at now is I'm trying to capture what these engineered canopy structures are that we have in place, because it's not just like you said, there's some places we just cannot plant trees. There's for natural tree canopy, and so we'll have to rely on engineered shade in more heavily developed urban areas. But they do provide a percentage point 2 or 3 perhaps of our shade canopy. So I'm going to be able to tease that data out and then have those locations where planting or perhaps additional engineered shade opportunities present themselves, and then we can move forward with that as well. It's a very important point.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Councilmember Adams.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you both.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate all your hard work, Richard, and you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 4B2, city solar policy, and I believe we have Shelley and Josh here to talk about that.
Good afternoon, Councilmember QB and Adams. So the solar permitting policy update, that's actually going to be given by Dino. And so I'll just turn it over to him.
Oh, Dino. Welcome back, Dino.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy for the opportunity to present. I am presenting on the solar readiness, just to clarify. Hopefully we don't have any confusion there, just to mention that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So let me get that up. So thank you again for this opportunity to present, Councilmember QB and Adams, representing building safety. You had asked for information on solar readiness as it relates to multifamily construction. That would fall under the category of commercial as multifamily. We're having a little bit of a technical problem here. I apologize.
Dino, that's because you're on your final slide. You need to go back to the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening here. There we go. Okay. So we did do our research, and what we found is there is a appendix located within the 2018 IECC under solar readiness, and it is Appendix CA. What we're going to provide for you today is what we found under Appendix CA. We'll provide you a code summary. We will give you an example of what in the Valley is currently adopted the solar readiness. And we will talk a little bit about what it can look like in Tempe adopting Appendix CA. So as part of our Tempe strategic priorities under sustainable growth and development, to reduce community greenhouse gas emissions by 80% of 2015 levels by 2050 and achieve community carbon neutrality by 2060. So we have placed this solar readiness under this Tempe strategic priority. The 2018 International Energy Conservation Code under Appendix CA was intended to encourage installation of renewable energy systems by preparing buildings for the future installation of solar energy equipment, piping, and wiring. The city of Tempe currently adopted and enforces the 2018 IECC. However, the appendix was not adopted with that last code adoption that we implemented January 1 of 2019. So Appendix CA was not part of that, but it's within the body of the code that we adopted. Commercial solar readiness, Appendix CA is actually within that body of code. And what makes it a little bit easier is that it can be adopted without the need for a new code development, like we're seeing with the IGCC, with the Green Code. This is a little bit of the code summary. It is not a very large appendix, but it covers some very important requirements that would be needed to be considered solar ready, okay? And specifically for commercial, multifamily falls under commercial requirements in the code. It is not under the residential code. So the only code that we found that provided for commercial solar readiness in our research was the IECC in Appendix CA. So it's applicable for all new commercial construction, which multifamily falls under. It includes what they call a solar ready zone, SRZs, and they shall be located on the roof of buildings 5 stories or less in height. Now, one challenge here is 5 stories or less in height. The reasoning was related to limits with regards to wind loads and how that played in. Now, the code doesn't fully know or understand what system is going to be up there because it's solar readiness. So what the code did is limit the building height. But that could be looked at a later date. The SRZ shall be 40% of the calculated roof area, less the area of vegetated roofs, skylights, and occupied roofs. As you're aware, our multifamily buildings often have amenity decks. So I see this as a positive in this provision because, you know, your 40% calculation is less the area of vegetated roofs, skylights, and occupied roofs. So it doesn't discourage the use of this solar readiness. So I think this was well written. Structural dead loads of not less than 5 pounds per square foot shall be included in the gravity and lateral design calculations. We talked a little bit about this the last time. Of course, there's going to be some structural considerations made. And the code requires a minimum consideration to be built into the design of the building when it first is submitted. And this is something easily achievable by an engineer. It's not asking much, and it provides for future design considerations when the PV system comes in. Interconnection pathways are required from the SRZ for future piping. This is important to have pathways throughout the building so that different electrical systems and piping can be ran simply without damage to the building or invading the space or the envelope. So this is a very important consideration. The electrical service reserve space is required for future dual pole breaker installations, and they must be identified. Again, very straightforward. It's not asking much. You'll just make electrical service design considerations for a reserve space for a future dual pole breaker. It is not an extreme provision at all. And the good thing is the code, again, requires a permanent certificate. You'll see this repeated throughout the Green Code a little bit. They want that identification. So a permanent certificate with the solar ready zone and all requirements must be posted. So you'll find this at the solar ready zone and at the electrical equipment. And this is to identify that building as being solar ready for future use. In the Valley, we found, we did some research and we found that Scottsdale adopted the 2015 IRC Appendix U for single family for residential. Tucson has adopted the 2018 IRC Appendix T for residential. Pima County adopted the 2018 IRC Appendix T for residential again. So we're finding in these communities that probably are not built out entirely and still doing a lot of new single family, you're finding that they're adopting the Appendix T for solar readiness. What we're seeing on our permits, I can update you on this. A lot of our permits for PV systems for single family are on existing homes. We are getting a lot of permits for that, but they are on single family homes that are already built. So again, solar readiness, we've already lost that opportunity. And we don't get a lot of new residential single family coming in. That's not the bulk of our permits right now. So the multifamily is what we're getting a lot of. So I understand what the request was for consideration of multifamily and solar readiness. 2018 IECC and Appendix CA adoption. So the city of Tempe has currently adopted, as I mentioned earlier, and enforces the 2018 IECC. Appendix CA was not included in that previous code adoption. If the SLCC would receive city council approval to proceed with Appendix CA review and or adoption, we could create a robust team of external and internal stakeholders for code review and development. And that is just to consider any impacts for developers and on the community and what we all would be looking for with regards to solar readiness for our multifamily buildings, and maybe expand it out a little further than just multifamily. That may come up. We do have a lot of what we call rooftop real estate from what I look at, and you can expand it. It is a commercial code, so it can be broadened. Again, it would have to go for review to TCAB and schedule with city council for a proposed code adoption. So it's a little bit more straightforward because we already have an appendix in the body of an adopted code. The appendix is very straightforward. It does not have a lot of provisions. I outlined many of them here, and it's very straightforward. So it's a little bit of a more quicker, streamlined process. From a plan review manager, from heading up the plan check for building safety, this is something that can be reviewed by staff. It is something that we can prepare for and train for and implement also from a plan review side. So to give you the complete perspective of how something like this would actually be implemented in plan review and enforced, it's something that building safety could take on if it was adopted rather quickly. And that concludes this PowerPoint presentation. If you have any questions, I'd open up for questions right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Dino, for a wonderful presentation. Councilmember Cubey, do you have any questions?
Yeah, as the one who sort of led the adoption back in 2018, it's news to me that we didn't adopt the appendix. I thought it's within, I'm just surprised to hear that, but I mean, I'm glad to hear you have a plan for adopting it. And I would like to, move forward with that as a recommendation, assuming that my council colleague agrees, that we move forward to bring a request for council direction at the next available work study session so we can begin doing the outreach that we need. I think we also need to have some community outreach as well for our residents. And I would like to move forward, assuming you do, Councilmember Adams, with bringing that to council.
Yes, I was surprised also, and I certainly am very happy to bring this forward to council as a whole and get this formally adopted.
And then I also want to ask, because in the past meeting, I thought we were also going to be talking about code for electric charging stations and what we might require of developers in multifamily for electric car infrastructure stations. We know there's been much talk from the federal government. We're not sure what will happen with the Build Back Better plans, or maybe with reconciliation and increased infrastructure, but there may be a lot of funds that start to come our way. I don't mean just the city of Tempe, but Arizona, and to multifamily developers, because I believe there are parts of the proposed laws and the Build Back Better plan that would bring investment for developers to build e-stations in their developments. So in any case, we need to be ready for that, because I think we're going to see an increased amount of electric vehicle infrastructure and funding for that. So I'm wondering if you can come back, or if we can incorporate that outreach and the work that has to be done with staff and looking at e-charging stations too, and getting the code ready for our new reality. So what do you think, Dino? Is that something we have to come back and you have to present to this committee, or can we have it come back for council direction for both items?
I would like to take a look at the EV charging. We are receiving, believe it or not, we are receiving some permits on it. I don't want to say a lot. I would say we are receiving some permits on EV charging. There's a lot going on, a lot more going on, at least when I first came on with the organization in 2019 in May. So I do see more permits coming in. But I would like to take a look at it and maybe have a presentation on it, just at least for my own awareness, if I could, and at least have one shot at it, if I could.
Do you think next month, assuming Councilmember Adams agrees, you could come back and with some EV ready code next month, and then we could bring it to work study, kind of both? I think it would be best to sort of integrate both of those code adoptions.
Great idea. Completely concur.
We could. We managed to come up with the solar readiness appendix from a commercial standpoint. I know that there's already code out there related to EV charging, so I don't think that would be a challenge.
And then I'm confused about the 5 stories. Like, can our code adapt that to our own needs? Because we obviously have a lot of developments that go over 5 stories. And so could we look at a code adoption that might include options that would be for more stories, for higher buildings, taller buildings?
Yeah, so from a structural aspect would be where we would investigate the origination of where the appendix concluded limiting 5 stories or less. That is where I would go. So I would like to focus on that, because I think that is probably the greatest limiting factor in that appendix that I found. That would have the greatest impact on our city, considering we're going vertical, right?
Yeah.
You know, most of our projects are vertical. So yes, definitely I would look into the why. I want to understand where the code came from and how that would impact our structures. You know, we have a lot of rooftop amenity decks, and we have a lot of structures that we see on our decks throughout our city.
That's right.
I don't see where, if the solar panel orientation angle to the roof plane can be considered, where you're not going to get a lot of uplift or a lot of wind load against that structure, why that's really there. So the why means a great deal to me, of why it really is there and what negative impact it could possibly have on the structure. If that's not the case, then I would feel that we could probably amend that provision before any consideration of adoption for our Tempe purposes.
And I imagine we can look to Scottsdale or other cities and see what they're doing, especially in the Southwest. And that brings up the thought that when we do go back to council, or maybe when you come back next month before we go to council work study, that we could have some identify the costs that might be associated with the code. I know my council colleagues will want to know that. I mean, for me, that kind of expenditure is well worth it, because we're in a climate crisis, and if not now, when? But it would be good to know what the identified costs are, and to look and see how Pima County and Tucson, who have done this in our state, like how did they research the costs? I imagine they'd be a good resource for us in determining what costs have were estimated, what costs actually what happened.
Yes, I agree. That would definitely help us to understand and do a cost analysis. We can definitely add that into the presentation, because that's going to be asked. That'll be a question that would be asked anyway.
Yes. Thank you, Dino. Thank you, Councilmember Adams.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, this is a really good discussion. It's quite informative, and I really appreciate Dino, you taking the time to present to us on information, and sounds like we have a good direction going forward. So so next month we'll have an update from you, Dino. Is that correct? And then Councilmember QB and I will go forward to a council as a whole. Is that my understanding?
Yes, yes, Councilmember Adams, and as I understand it, we're going to add the EV charging, correct?
That's my understanding too. Yes, that's correct. So,
And if I could have a clarification on specifics for the EV charging, maybe that could be provided offline so that I can stay focused on exactly what we're seeking.
yes. Are you comfortable with that, Councilmember QB?
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay. And then just for future agenda items, I know this is more the livability side of our committee, but I'm getting a lot of complaints about traffic out there. And I was hoping that we could look at Vision Zero again, particularly in our downtown area and on College and some of those streets. Hardy already has the traffic calming. I apologize. Like, I know College, for example, I get a lot of complaints from there, and I ride that also. I ride my bicycle on that, and I see it firsthand. And so I would like to pursue traffic calming and Vision Zero. Is that okay with you, Councilmember QB?
I have great interest in Vision Zero and furthering the goals of Vision Zero. It might be in the province of Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Garland's committee. So I'm not sure how. Perhaps can we have if I could ask our aides to have a conversation with our chief of staff and see how this issue is advancing. I mean, we can't discuss the substance of it, but we could find out what the process is, because from my last understanding, the transportation was supposed to be coming back to council with recommendations and perhaps a sort of compromise plan. It had been rejected about over a year ago, and I think there was a compromise plan that was going to be brought forward. And so, is that something that we could hear about maybe in I don't know if it's a Friday packet or some kind of? We should be able to find out what's going on, and if that committee is not really exploring it, perhaps we can take it up. But I'm sort of unclear about what our I don't want to like step into somebody else's wheelhouse, but I know that transportation is dealing with this, so maybe there can be some input in the next meeting about it.
Okay.
Agendized for today.
I'm good with that.
Hi, council members QB and Adams. This is Marilyn Dorsi. And I'm sorry for jumping in, but you are absolutely correct that council members Navarro and Garland have asked for an update. We provided a Vision Zero update recently, and they asked for follow-up. So perhaps we can get with the staff of transportation can get with the council aides and talk about how to perhaps get these two topics together. And maybe if there's enough interest, it's actually a topic for work study session. So let me talk with the council aides and just know that you do have two council colleagues that are very interested. The mayor is interested, and that we're working towards a strategy, if you will. So whatever if you'd like us to come back to this committee, we can do that. Let's touch base with the other committee, though, and make sure that we're not providing redundant information.
Okay.
And Councilmember Adams, I really do appreciate you bringing it up because
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Councilmember QB. What were you saying?
I mean, think about Councilmember Navarro and Garland. They have public safety in their purview, so Vision Zero fits into there, but Vision Zero clearly fits into sustainable livable communities as well. And we do sometimes have these interconnecting, intersecting issues that have, obviously great interest to a lot of the committees. So maybe there could be a time sooner than later where it could come before a work study. We could all get a chance to weigh in as a body, all of the council members and the mayor.
I think that's a great idea. I really do. I think it's got a lot of support. I think things have changed a little bit since last year. And Marilyn, when would you be able to put something together for a work study session?
Councilmember Adams, we could, right now, I haven't checked in with Alex. I was going to work with him to get us back on the other committee, their agenda. So honestly, if we touch base with them and they support going to work study, we can get in front of work study really when there's an opening. October, November, October might be soon. It's October's tomorrow, but yeah, I mean, really, it's at the pleasure of the committee.
Sure.
And each
So-
two council members can bring something forward too.
Exactly. You read my mind, Councilmember Cubie. So I want this to go forward. Councilmember Cubie, are you comfortable with this going forward for a work study session?
Well, yes, but I would like Marilyn to reach out, and I mean,
Oh, sure.
we want to work in conjunction with the other committee. So it may be a really good time to have a discussion, and they may not know that we have this interest. So it would be good to have that conversation. We can't have that conversation because of quorum, but staff could just look at the issue and see when it's the best time to bring it forward to work study. But and I know you guys in transportation had said you were going to bring it back to the entire council at some point. This is after the Transportation Commission made a strong appeal, and then it went back to transportation to really look at the Transportation Commission's suggestions and really analyze them kind of intersection by intersection. So we're all kind of expecting it to come back as a council. So perhaps we could just get some kind of update, all of us, rule of 7, you know?
Yeah, Councilmembers Cubie and Adams, I will circle back with the council aides. I just had a conversation, Shelley and I had a conversation with the mayor this morning. So there's definitely, it's a topic that it's top of mind. So let me get something back in front of either on your work study. I'll get it on your work study session, council meeting, assuming that Andrew is in support, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so why don't we shoot for November then? Marilyn?
Yes, Councilmember Adams, I'll double check with the clerk's office, talk to Andrew, make sure there's room on the agenda. And I think, I don't think there'll be a problem moving forward.
Okay, and could you circle back with us so we know when it's going to be on and all of that?
Yeah, I'm wondering if I was thinking of working through your council aides, if that works for you guys.
Sure. That's
Very good.
Good, excellent. Councilmember Cubie, do you have any future agenda items?
So, well, have we gone, let's see, we haven't done the IGC. Don't we have to hear more? Is there another presentation? Am I missing something?
Yes, there is item 4B3.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, yes, I missed that.
I think we skipped ahead to new, but that's okay. You're the chair. You're sitting in the big chair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh dear. Okay, yeah, so now we're going to move on to item 4B3, International Green Construction Code update. And do we have Donna and Dino to talk to us about that? So take it away, you two.
Okay. Okay, thank you again. I'm back.
We're back.
Thank you
Yeah.
again. So I think they gave me the first presentation, so they just gave me this one too. So I enjoy being trusted and valued. So thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity. Shelley, Donna, Councilmember Cubie, Councilmember Adams, I just appreciate your trust and confidence. And this update is short. It's very straightforward. Again, this is it falls under the Sustainable Growth and Development performance, and we understand how that applies for our city and how important that is. For our update, we've included some information for you. It's good news because we're moving forward. And so for fiscal year 21-22, community development, building safety received budget approval of a supplemental for a green building program specialist. So that that's very good news. But the position provided limited funds at $63,683. That provides some constraints. So staff had a discussion, a team discussion. Shelley, Braden, Donna, and I, and we talked about how to maximize the effectiveness of those limited funds, considering that we are early in our code development and in any energy program developments. So we broke it down this way for you in this report. So in order to maximize the effectiveness of the limited funds, we would be seeking assistance of a consultant through RFP to assist staff with the following. 1, develop Tempe 2018 IGCC code and creation of a building safety, green building and energy program section. In our department, we call them sections. So that is really important, helping us develop that new groundbreaking type of section and discipline within building safety. That's basically where the rubber meets the road. We are going to pilot city projects, Fire Station 7 and one more. That's important to pilot the projects working together with our consultant. We're going to seek recommendations from them for training of city staff. No matter what, city staff is going to have to understand the green code, how it fits into the fabric of what we enforce with the current bodies of code, because all the codes are integrated. So we behave like the code. The code is integrated, therefore we enforce from an integrated standpoint. We're going to pilot 1 to 3 private property projects. And what that looks like, Braden could probably elaborate on, but that's where we're headed. We're going to resource plan for implementation of voluntary use of the code. So again, we're going to go in voluntary, but once it's part of bonus, it would become mandatory. That's what we talked about originally, and that's where we're moving forward with, unless we're directed to go a different route. And again, EV capable code and solar ready code implementation would be rolled into that, okay, because that would fall under the umbrella of a building safety, green building and energy program and section. So this concludes that quick update for you. And if I would open it up to questions, if there are any.
Councilmember Cubey, do you have questions?
Yeah, a couple, Dino. Thanks so much. Don't you mean Fire Station 2? Not Fire Station 7?
Yes, I believe so.
So Fire Station 2, I believe, is underway.
Right.
Fire Station 7 is new.
Correct. And that's what because we would be past the point of being able to include that into a consultant piloting with all the other things that have to occur. The timing, I don't think, is going to line up right.
Well, what about with the Clark Park and the Tempe Municipal Operations Center? Because we got CIP funding for that, and that's still in the planning stage. Can Clark Park Aquatic Center and Tempe Municipal Operations Center be wrapped into that?
I believe so. I mean, I rely on the team, the broader team, to help me through some of that. I'm taking more of the technical side, I believe, but definitely I wouldn't believe why it couldn't. But Braden had recommended these specific 2 projects to be slated as the pilots. So I was going off the recommendations provided to us in building the update. But definitely, I don't see why not.
Yeah, because I know that, I mean, the RFP does talk about future city buildings, and maybe they weren't discussed at the time, and they've just been sort of given the green light with their CIP. So I just wanted to, bring that up as discussion. And you mentioned that the 63,800 or whatever really wasn't enough. And is that, what kind of funding is needed to complete this initial work by, in a year's time, by June 2022? Because you might need, if there's a small, is it close? Is it something that will be a stumbling block? Is it having more money? And that's something our committee could try and bring forward, or look at contingency funds or something. But would more money make a difference in advancing this?
Well, I think Councilmember Cubie, no matter what, I think we would benefit. What we talked about in our team is that we would benefit from the assistance, this being so new for the city, for all of us, in utilizing it this year, these funds this year, and focusing on development, assistance with development of these, of not only the code, but also on a green building program. I think it would be worthwhile, however, based upon what you're asking, to do maybe a bit of a study of, for example, starting with Scottsdale and taking a look at what salaries are provided there for their program. That might be a good example that we can use to understand what that type of position. And I believe the name of the gentleman is leaving me now, so I'm sorry. Anthony
Floyd.
Correct. Sorry.
Man, the myth,
Oh,
the
you're
legend.
good, Councilmember Cubie.
Yes,
He's
thank you.
he is
So
a legend.
maybe we could take a look at what his pay is. What we thought is that if we we're trying to maximize the effectiveness to have an established program in place in order to actually implement the code, to get it off the ground. And that's where we were with utilizing that. And I refer to them as limited because that's sort of the feedback and some of the sense and the feeling that we had gotten about, and that's the total. I believe that's the total package. I believe that includes benefits. Correct me if I'm wrong, Donna. So I believe that was the total allowance for the entire.
It was.
Yeah.
Can I cut in?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, this is Donna Sullivan Hancock. Thank you, council members Cubie and Adams, for having us. I would like to expand on what Dino said a little bit. First thing, what you had said something about June of 2022. I need to check my understanding there. You did not mean that you expected the green code to be implemented in that time frame. Is that correct?
Well, the initial work.
Okay, so that's good. So we have started to move forward. We are in the process of selecting the right experienced person to help us. This is going to be, we were very encouraged to see that this was passed at the last supplemental. And we really feel like it's such an important program and step for Tempe, even now and moving into the future. We really want to do this right. So, none of us have a lot of experience with this particular program. So we felt like it was a good idea, at least this year, to, get more information on that, which we are doing. Like I said, we'll be choosing an appropriate, help to help us with that, someone with experience in the area. But I'm believing that, when we say program, we'll be intaking, we'll have to, there'll be planning training. It's just really going to encompass a lot of community development, even to the point of having plan reviewers and inspectors, because as Dino said over and over again, this is an enforceable code. So I will say that the first step, our goal is to have this exercise completed by May of next year. So, I think that timing meets. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, that you have the funds that you need. I remember when we were renovating La Casa Vieja, and there was just 100,000 more. We could just have finished what we had appropriated and get it done, but we'd have to go back in 5 years and actually finish the job. And so instead, the city manager's office found some funds to kind of complete it, since we were in the midst of all that. It's sort of a comparable thing. If you guys think you need more funds, then council should know that, and they could see if there's any contingency, if you don't think 63,000 is adequate. But I mean, I'm looking forward to getting the RFP process, really excited about it. And perhaps you guys could come back in January and tell us who's selected and what the plan is, what the time frame is. And you know, I'm really intent. I'd love to know what the firm has to say about how much money is needed to really accelerate the adoption, because you were a little bit behind, just frankly. These are one of the things I ran on. Not that you care about what I ran on in 2014. It's like yesterday, but to me, we're a little bit behind on this, and there's so much interest from staff and council that if there's a way we can accelerate this, I would like to know what that firm or that individual thinks could be the plan to accelerate the adoption.
Well, thank you very much for that, because when we go into negotiations with the consultant, we will keep that in mind. So I really appreciate that sentiment and that offer. So yes, we will definitely, we can come back in January and give you another update. We should definitely have things rolling by then. So we'll be in a very good place. But my hope and my goal is that whoever we get will be able to tell us really almost exactly what we're going to need moving forward, so that we present the program appropriately to council and to you guys.
And you know, the whole EV and solar ready code, that's something we can sort of clear and get out of the way. Like check mark, get off our plate. I just want to thank Councilmember Adams, because, you know, it was your election, Councilmember Adams, that really helped to advance these goals, and to see this come to fruition, you know, is very exciting for me personally. And I just thank all of you, Donna, Dino. I know how much this fits into your whole ethos and the whole sustainability infusion that we've had over the past few years. And I'm really excited. So I can't wait to hear back and what happens to the RFP. Just let us know what you need to get more resources if you need them.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Well said, Councilmember QB. Yes, I mean, I really want to get this moving, and just y'all let us know what you need, and I'm fairly confident that we can get you more resources if needed. So just yeah, let's just keep moving forward, and I really appreciate all of you taking the time to do the research and get us the information that we've requested. Good job to the team on that.
And thank you very much.
Councilmember Adams, this is City Engineer Julian Dreesen. Can I speak quickly about the projects that future upcoming infrastructure projects that and how it relates to the International Green Construction Code?
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, thank you. I know we're short on time. I'll make this brief. I just want you to know that we are working very closely with Dr. Braden Kane on Fire Station 2, as well as the TMOC, as well as Clark Park. Although we don't have a formal IGCC code in place, we are using elements of that for all of those projects. And so we are working with consultants that have experience working with IGCC, as well as we're going to be tracking how those different components, as we incorporate those into those projects, how those affect the projects from a cost standpoint and from just how we develop those projects. So I don't want you to think that we're waiting until this code is adopted to do anything. We are actively using it when we're looking at those any new infrastructure projects, especially vertical.
Okay, thank you. Just out of curiosity, since you brought up Clark Pool, where are we on that center, the rec center?
We are moving ahead. We have a designer that's actively an architect designing that project. We also have a construction manager on board that's providing review on those and constructability. So we are we're moving full speed ahead on that project, and we'd be happy to provide updates in the future on that one. But yeah, it's moving.
Yeah, I would like an update for a future agenda item. I'd like an update on that next month, because that is about our livability.
Councilmember Adams, what about at some point a Friday packet item? Because that seems like something that entire council would probably want to get an update on. It's been
Oh, sure. I'm good with that.
I'm just worried about like just packing our agenda to so much, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with it, Lauren. Or Councilman.
Can I just say something in reaction to talking about? I mean, I remember it was Fire Station 2. I'm glad, and fully expect that. To me, Fire Station 2 has such incredible potential, because here we have, we know that by building in a more sustainable manner, it's not just about the building's health and the energy envelope of the building and the carbon emissions. from the building, but it's about the health of our firefighters, and it's about individual health. We know our firefighters are subject to serious exposures to chemicals, and so we really could lead the valley and the state, and I'll just say it, I'll lead the nation in devising the most healthful environment for our firefighters. And I know we did a lot of steps towards that with Fire Station 7, and I'm so appreciative of that, but I feel like this is an opportunity to really showcase the best in building and that benefits public health and individual health. Thank you. Thank you for letting me be on the soapbox.
Thanks. No problem, Councilmember Cubie. Julian, getting back to Clark Pool, just can you tell me like about a guesstimate about when we'll get the shovels in the ground?
I don't know that at this time, but I will get that information and follow up when I have that information.
Because if I'm not mistaken, it's been 2 years since we approved it at council. So I just, I would like to see that.
Yeah, we know it's a priority for you as well as our residents, and so we're moving along as quickly as possible. And I will provide that information as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councilmember Cubie, do you have any announcements today? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, you back up. First of all, thank you to all of our presenters today for some really great information. Councilmember Cubie, do you have any new items for consideration to be added to a future agenda?
I do not. We have a healthy plate ahead of us, and I'm excited about what we can get done.
Okay, very good. All right. And Councilmember Cubie, do you have any announcements today?
Not today.
Okay, and I do not have any announcements today. I want to announce that our next scheduled meeting date will be Wednesday, October 27th at 4 p.m. I want to thank everyone for being here and for starting an earlier time today. And I wish you all a very happy Halloween. I guess, well, no, I'll talk to you before then. Right. Okay. So yeah, so just have a great month, and we'll be back on the 27th at 4 p.m. Thank you, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
You bet. Thank you.
Everyone.
You.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.